All right, let's start then. So welcome, dear colleagues. Good morning to Argentina, good afternoon to Germany, Spain, and all other countries that might be represented here. Welcome to a new edition of the SciCon lectures. Our topic today is artificial intelligence and whether it's a friend or a foe to journalism, or to put it in less dramatic terms, what use cases we can come up with to employ artificial intelligence in the newsrooms, what we have to consider when doing so, and where we have to be cautious. As I'm pretty sure that all of you have discussed this topic on at least one or two occasions, I think we can agree that these artificial intelligence tools are not going to go away. They are very good at imitating writing styles. They make their text sounds like they have been written by an expert, which may even fool people to believing that everything they say is true. And that's something we have learned already. Those artificial intelligence tools are not designed for truth. So we will need to do good old fact-checking before publishing any text they might provide. And today we have three distinguished guests from around the world to tell us about their perspectives on journalism and artificial intelligence. First, we have Florencia Coelho. She's from Buenos Aires, Argentina. She works in the data team of the newspaper La Nación. And she will be the first to give a talk. She used to be a lawyer a long time ago, but then started to freelance and consult, and in the end join the newsroom of a newspaper. And in the last couple of years, she has been interested in the opportunities that artificial intelligence provides to journalism. After Flor, Christina Elmer will give a talk. Christina used to work as a data journalist for many years, and her last position was deputy head of the editorial development team at the German magazine Der Spiegel. But now she's a professor for data journalism at the Technical University in Dortmund, and was a journalist in residence at the Cyber Valley, which is an institution close to my hometown, Stuttgart and Tübingen, where institutes and companies are trying to push artificial intelligence forward. And the third talk will be by Patricia Ventura. She's an associate professor at the University of Barcelona in Spain. Her research topics are the ethics and the regulation of artificial intelligence. And she was one of the authors of a report called Algorithms in the Newsroom, which was published by the Catalan Information Council. So these three guests will give presentations each of about 10 minutes. I will remind you once you approach the 10-minute time mark. And afterwards, I hope that we will have some time for discussion with all the other guests involved. So, Flor, you're first, please. And your mic, yes.
Yes, and I see the ugly black bar here. Okay. So maybe I should update this graphic, and instead of putting artificial intelligence, use ChatGPT. But hi all. I can move my slides. Wait a minute. Ahí está. Yes. I live in Argentina, South America. I spent a year at the JSK Journalism Fellowships at Stanford, learning about AI challenges and opportunities. This is part of the team, the data team in Buenos Aires of La Nación. And well, the organizer sent us some questions, and I put some of my thoughts about this. What roles does AI already play in journalism? I usually classify it in three. like AI as the object of investigative reporting, while you do watchdog journalism of algorithms deployed by government or corporations. Then AI as a tool for producing original editorial content, and AI solutions to optimize newsroom processes that can vary from news gathering, analytics, production, and distribution. There are more, more to add to this list, but I think that this is a clear summary. So artificial intelligence has different subdomains. I think we have experiment with machine learning, natural language processing, vision, and speech that want to imitate some human abilities. So in 2016, we have tested with speech to text and trying to analyze 40,000 phone interceptions that were investigated by general prosecutor that was found dead, like his suicide the day before accusing our president in National Congress. It was an investigation on a terrorist attack in Buenos Aires. So we couldn't really use the speech to text solution. We were working with two developers from Open News. I don't know if you remember the Night Mozilla Open News program that they embedded developers in newsrooms. So they tried, but we finally has to listen to all the audios to publish our investigation. We have worked with vision image recognition and two projects that I was involved with. One was trying to detect solar farms to monitor government programs on renewable energies and with satellite imagery. And the other, we used computer vision and image recognition to analyze documents that are issued during the electoral day when we have elections for president or Congress renewals. So there we use also computer vision to detect information, if vital information was missing from these documents that the citizens that work in each voting station have to complete by the end of the election date. I'm publishing here, I put in here all the links to the behind the scenes and communications. We also experimented with natural language processing that is involved with texts. It was kind of data-tainment, how we can learn these tools without a deadline. And it was interesting to analyze lyrics of trap music that is very popular here in Argentina. And so like it took us like 7 months. It's like we're, instead of investigating corruption, we are investigating like AI. No, we are super privileged to be allowed time to experiment with these tools. And then if one day we have like a WikiLeaks, we are already trained the muscle of how to work in Spanish when most of libraries are in English, and how, so this is what we published, and it has been a learning experience for the team. And so there we have used like topic modeling, name entity recognition to try to analyze how this music, what they talk about. And so it was cool. It's a nice multimedia package. And for us was a very good learning experience. And I attended Perugia conference online. And I was able to see a presentation from Nicholas Diakopoulos at Northwestern University. He's based, and I found 2 examples of what he's doing with science journalism and technology journalism. So in case you don't know it, I just want to point it out to you. Like he's working on the newsworthiness of research papers. Like they analyzed summary abstracts and tried to look for angles that could be interesting for a journalist. This using prompting the ChatGPT solution for this. And so they have trained the model with 55 abstracts and trying to discover if that paper has a newsworthiness, like if will be interesting to lots of people for good or bad, the research output, if it's contemporary, if there is the information is suitable for controversy. So I'm leaving here the links, and you can, his presentation is online, and I think you can contact him because he has an experiment on this generative AI in the newsroom, and he wants to partner with different journalists around the world to test these tools. And so I think if you're in science, you should be a perfect match to work together with Nicolas. And he also showed another example for science journalism, that instead of the paper summarization, and to try to adapt it to the technical terms to more easy language for journalists, for example, or general audience. So he's excited about this because ChatGPT is more of a language machine, better than maybe a discovery and fact generator tool. So I leave you this in case you haven't seen it, but he sees a good opportunity for scientific journalists. So another question, what influence does it have on reporting and journalistic formats? I think that AI can help for impossible projects, the ones that you are not going to do if you didn't have these tools to help. Also for me, it's very important that the work collaboration, internal and external, with other newsroom, but also with software companies, universities, academia, because it's not a solo job. And some examples of format like audio, video, transcription, translation, summarization, image recognition. Really, you can have most of content. I can't find the word in English, but related with, you can work with AI with the different type of formats. And I chose this example that I really like, is an NGO that is investigating deforestation, and they are using a very old cell phone. They put a solar panel and to maintain it connected, and they have trained the model with audio that detects if there is a chainsaw or a chopping of trees noise, or if there is a truck noise. And so it will send an alert to indigenous people that live very close, and they will come and then alert this NGO. So this would be like an impossible project. And we are using audio listening, training the model to detect special noises and then give alert to try to stop this illegal deforestation. Also animal poaching. And another word that I mentioned is collaboration. So I was part also with Christina Elmer. We are both in this photograph of the Journalism AI Collab organized by LSE for 2 years in a row. And so I will show one example that we have worked there, but also then adapted to Spanish for La Nación. What challenges does it pose in dealing with
10 minutes,
ethical?
by the way.
I have 10 minutes or 5 minutes?
No, 10 minutes is up.
My 10 minutes are up? Okay. I
Yes.
have.
How many
Okay.
slides do you have left?
Okay, no, I can go faster. What challenges does it pose in dealing with ethical issues, generative AI copyright issues, disclaimer to audience, diversity, inclusion? I'm including some slides from a recent just published report from the Human-Centered Institute at Stanford, how they are submitting AI. And we have worked with Bias in Newsroom at the Journalism AI with this media. And we have analyzed the gender gap tracker with natural language processing, also images to try how these models were biased and not counting as women, people of color, women old and of darker skin. And we have turned it to Spanish. We have worked on this to have a gender gap detector for our newsroom. And we also have worked in diversity and inclusion. We used to have a Trello where you can check how you talk about this community, which words. And so now we have made like a Google search or a password suggester that if you have a doubt of one word, how you should refer with respect to that type of community, could be handicapped people, sexual identity, mental health, and we have a predictive solution for social media headlines that includes this diversity and inclusion enhancement for our newsroom. And to close, like, what does it mean for the future of journalism? Like, lots of deep fakes, maybe a good opportunity for media to be the ones that say this is fake, no? So people will turn here. It's very important, the alphabetization of people, citizens about this, and the environment also is affected by journalism and AI. Look at how GPT is emitting lots of carbon gases. And then there are countries publishing laws regarding AI. So this is important for democracy, now that different Congress in the world start to legislate about this. And this is my final slide, or things that are happening, like the godfather of AI quits Google because he's afraid of the result of the technology he has been working for long years can be used by the bad guys. Or The Guardian alerting that ChatGPT is pointing to articles that they haven't never published. And here I am, I'm finished.
Okay, thank you very much, Flor, for this big collection of very different and interesting use cases for artificial intelligence. We will have the question and answer and discussion session at the end after all three talks. But if you want to ask a question, you can both either raise your hand like this afterwards in the Q&A session, or just post your question in the chat and I will read it to Flor and Christina and Patricia. So now it's Christina's turn.
Yes, thanks a lot. I will also share my screen, the other one. And also the presentation. Yeah. Thank you so much, Flor, for all these interesting and really great use cases. I think there are some parts of my presentation that I can skip now, and this will keep me within the 10 minutes, hopefully. I named my presentation Assisting Parrots 2.0 because I think the parrot topic will stay. We won't have like mind-like machines, but in the end, maybe they will be becoming much smarter than they are at the moment right now. For the start, I'd like to zoom out a little bit because I think AI is often called a hype right now, and I think this is absolutely true, but in the end, we see even in the Gartner hype cycle right now that there are even a few AI applications that are, of course, also beyond the hype status and are already reaching the so-called plateau of productivity already. So yeah, given that journalism sometimes has its problems with adapting innovations and new technologies quickly, and I think this is this can be explained in a meaningful way, of course. we should, of course, deal with these topics in both regards. Of course, first of all, newsrooms should employ a thoughtful joy in experimentation on the one hand, and of course have to critically observe all the developments on the other hand side. To put it together, this is the watchdog role that I've been talking about, of course. Then investigations, as we've seen some examples in the presentation already by Flor. So to be able to use and really analyze extensive data sets, leaks, for example, but also satellite images and so on. We have to use these tools, otherwise these projects won't be possible. Then verification is a topic, of course, but also products and services. We can use and should use, as I would say, AI-driven tools to do meaningful personalizations and to reach diverse target groups with their needs a bit better than we do today. And in the end, of course, I would certainly say we have to develop these emergent technologies and try to remain as independent as we can, or as media companies can, of tech giants, for example, that are also working with these models and that are deploying them and selling the access to them. There are already really many fields. We've seen some of them already where AI-driven systems are active so far in newsrooms. For example, this whole investigations and research topic. Archives are quite important, I would say, as well. For example, the WDR archive that you can see at the screenshot on the right side, to be able to really use those multimedia contents in the day-to-day news production is really valuable for those companies, for example, but also when it comes to leaks. The other screenshot shows the Neo4j tool that is used in investigating leak data sets, where you can just find out identities and how they are connected with each other. This is quite helpful in those data sets. Then there is this whole production side where speech-to-text, like transcription services and also text-to-speech and translation tools are used quite a lot already. And I think this has been quite easily, even for journalists in newsrooms, to find their way to these services, because otherwise, transcription is really painful. But of course, also the moderation of user comments is a huge field that is already supported by AI-driven tools. Then the distribution and monetization part, there are already some fast developments in these fields. Maybe because this is, these fields have a greater distance to the content side, for example, so you can experiment a bit better and you don't have to be that fact-based in the end. And a churn prevention model is, of course, something different than an article writing generative AI bot. Speaking of generative AI, there are already some use cases that are quite interesting, I would say. For example, the BuzzFeed as told to Buzzy AI bot. It is obviously writing travel articles, and it is obviously also edited, which is important. So far I would say these articles are not that exciting in journalistic regards, but they seem to be solid content. And we should, of course, also have an eye on BuzzFeed, because they already told us that they will develop AI-driven quiz formats, for example, where you can have personalized quizzes. And this might also be an interesting use case for other newsrooms as well. Then there has been the other experiment by CNET earlier this year. And I think you can say that this is totally gone wrong. They published AI-generated articles, and they have also not been edited, and also not been verified or fact-checked. So in the end, there were many errors in these service articles, and it was also not that transparent that no humans have been involved in writing those articles. So they now have put those information at the top of these articles. You can see this on the left side, But initially, yeah, it was only written by CNET money staff, and you could not really trust the content. So this has given us a really great impression on what not to do. And there is one great example when dealing with generative AI done by Bloomberg. They have not only published content, but also scientific research on how to train your own generative AI model. This is called Bloomberg GPT. And on the right side, you can see the table of all the data sets with which it is trained. And the one half of, I think, of all the tokens, is the same that every other AI tool has been trained with as well. So all the contents from GitHub and Archive and whatnot. But the other half is interesting. This comes from the from the Bloomberg data sets, from the Bloomberg terminal, for example, but also from their archive and press clippings and so on. So now they are able to train this model to specific tasks that they have to solve in their newsroom. For example, headline generation, or another great task is how to access the Bloomberg terminal, because obviously I didn't know that you can't really ask it questions. You have to learn a specific language like to interact with this terminal. So to sum it up, I would say that the most promising application areas right now are, first of all, the knowledge management, because there are so many great articles and pieces of knowledge that we produce every day in the newsrooms and that are not used afterwards at all. And we could really deal with these resources in a more sustainable way, I would say. Then generative AI models, as there are more and more combinations of AI, of generative AI and models that are connected to databases, for example. You can see this in the Bing search, for example, or in the Wolfram Alpha plugin that GPT-4 offers. Then suddenly the facts come in, and these could be really interesting assistant systems in the end, also in newsrooms, I would say. And also I would think that synthetic media could be a really interesting use case as well for media companies in the future. Just to sum up, a few obstacles, tensions, and challenges. I think there are so many topics that you could really dive into extensively here. But I think there is this technology side, of course, where newsrooms need the development capacities to really work on, I would hope, their own AI models, like Bloomberg, for example. But also we would need much more metadata on journalistic contents. And given the actual state, this is not that easy. Then there's also the culture topic I already talked about. Skills are quite important. So algorithmic and data literacy really help to also bring in these new technologies. Transparency is important because we don't really already know how to make these production processes transparent in an understandable way. We need more research on that. And it's important to operationalize quality criteria and journalistic values to these systems so that they can, in the end, understand what relevant content is, what journalistic quality means, to be able to have, for example, good recommendations. To try to,
10 minutes.
Yeah, I will, have a few slides, but not many. Just try to imagine what will happen in the future. I thought, okay, I don't really know, and why is that the case? I don't know how the AI literacy develops and how this really will be in 10 years in society, and also the acceptance, because we don't know how this will go on. And I mean, on the lower half of this scheme is not that joyful. I mean, then we would have a low AI literacy and maybe hardly use of AI tools or an unconscious use, because tech giants will use them anyways, or an unreflected use, which will be, I think, really not a good idea for society. And in the upper half, this could be more a regulated use of AI-driven tools, and maybe even regionalized, because you will have different regulatory systems in different parts of the world, which seems a bit crazy as an idea, but let's see. I mean, the EU wants to go forward in this regard. We don't know with which measures right now, but yeah. And what I hope for would be a status in which we can really do controlled and thoughtful experiments with many different AI systems, but yeah, given that the literacy is high. And I want to close with some contributions that we can really provide in the journalism education field that I'm responsible for right now. So first of all, we try to foster data, digital, and statistical literacy, for example, with interdisciplinary seminars on generative AI models, algorithmic accountability reporting, and so on. This is quite great as a learning field for everyone involved. Then we have to prepare our journalistic students to be hosts for debates on AI acceptance, connected to constructive journalism. I think we have to develop an understanding that we have to foster and host these debates and how to do it. And then, of course, reflective skills are also absolutely important at this stage. So sorry for being a bit too long, but thank you so much.
Thank you too, Christina, for these extra insights and your differentiation on how the future might look. Now we turn to Patricia. Please, the floor is yours.
I'm sharing my presentation.
All right, we can see it.
Yes, okay. So first of all, thank you so much for inviting me here and for giving me the opportunity to share our research. A little correction, I'm not an associated professor at the Universitat de Barcelona. I'm a PhD in Media, Communication and Culture in Universitat Autònoma de Barcelona, just a little detail for my university. Okay, so I'm going to talk about ethics, AI, and journalism. I'm going to try. That's the center of our research, and precisely about this report that was published by the Catalan Media Council at the beginning of 2022, last year, in English. AI, artificial intelligence, challenges journalism in different ways. Journalism, we believe, has to be able to report rigorously about artificial intelligence, has to be able to monitor their application, auditing algorithms, and to be consequent, should be able to make a responsible adoption of artificial intelligence. All those three lines of actions are connected by the need of something that has been already mentioned by Flor and Christina, the absolutely need of AI literacy in journalism. All those three lines of action are also interdependent in the sense that if we have to monitor their application and report about AI rigorously, therefore we should be able to make a responsible adoption and therefore have legitimacy to monitor it. We believe that by the responsible adoption of AI, we will contribute to generate trust, and we will contribute as well for a healthy information ecosystem. AI is present in the newsrooms from a long time ago, especially in the main media. But it's true that last years we're using it more and more. AI is present in through all the value chain, from news gathering, production, and distribution. Today, we ask to AI things like what's newsworthy, with those tools that send us alerts about topics that the people talks about online, what kind of format should we use, or what title do we have to choose with those A/B testing tools, or even what content should we highlight with those recommendations or recommend widgets or personalization applications. All those questions are part of the core of the editorial function of journalism. The trend is very clear in Spain, and we know already all over the world, we're going to use it more and more. In this report, we made the start of the art here in Catalonia. So if you want to go deeper, I think my colleagues, Christina and Flor, they made a very good start of the art of the use case and very interesting use cases. But if you want to go deeper and in more detailed cases in our report, we go deeper in this. How do we approach this complexity for doing this analysis from an ethical point of view? We try to identify which tools or practices with AI raise more concerns, which dilemmas emerge, and which of the main principles of journalistic ethics affects. Of course, we made a literature analysis for making the report, and we asked journalists from all over Spain what concerns they had, or what topics raised the most concerns for them in front of the adoption of AI in media. And that's what they told us. Journalists are worried because an eventual loss of quality of the journalism, about bias, about contributing to echo chambers also from the media, from the traditional media, polarization, transparency, moral responsibility, even loss of value, dehumanization, etc. Then all those reflections, we confronted them with those main ethical journalistic values: truth, fairness, freedom, and responsibility. We identified those values thanks to previous research done by PhD Salvador Alsius, a Catalan PhD, who tracked codes of ethics from around the world and identified which were the most common principles in them. So we shared all those reflections with an expert committee, multidisciplinary, from philosophers. We counted with the Ethical of AI Observatory in Catalonia, specialists in journalism innovation, computational journalism. We had the chance to count on Nicholas Yakopoulos, Charlie Beckett, who for sure you all know. And then we could count with the main media in Catalonia for this reflection. Then after all this, we identify 7 key aspects from which the recommendations that are present in this report, because it ends with some recommendations, and I'm gonna synthesize all these topics that we analyzed, and I'm gonna share then the recommendations for an ethical adoption of AI. So those are the recommendations. You will find them in the page 34 of this report. I'm going to make this synthesis now. Okay, we found issues related to automated content, as it has already mentioned here. It is important the transparency in communicating when artificial intelligence is in operation. It doesn't mean that we have to communicate like if we use an artificial intelligence to make a transcription or a change of format, text to audio, audio to text, but it is important to communicate clearly when we generate, for example, synthetic images or text, among other things, because AI Act in the UE will oblige to communicate it. It's important as well to monitor this automated content because it makes errors, and responsibility still remains with the journalists. So we have to know what we're publishing for this accountability. No? About the personalization, raised a lot of discussion because it conflicts with the main journalistic function, which is providing common ground. If we personalized extremely, then we lose this important communitarian function. So it's all in the balance, and I think it's a lot of common sense. But it's true that we have economic problems in our sector, so it's easy if you think the short term to say, okay, I'm going to automate everything. I'm going to personalize because I'm going to get a lot of clicks. But we are in risk of denaturalize what we are as well. We have to monitor data quality to avoid bias. Bias is a cross ethical problem in all AI application in all sectors. So we have to master database management in journalism. Issues about privacy. If we're going to use more AI, we're going to use more data. So all this data that we're going to manage, we will have to use it responsibly. In UE, we've got the general data protection laws that are an excellent tool to preserve user privacy responsibly. But we are not always doing it. Something that has been mentioned also by Christina, which is really, really important, is this awareness about the power of platforms and the threat to informative independence, because they are the great founders of big journalistic projects, and also they provide tools and software, and we just again balance. So other things are in a more proactive attitude, using AI to strengthen the values of journalism. And I liked very much the examples Flor exposed before about, I didn't know, in La Nación they use these predictive headlines and these tools for avoiding gender gap and inclusion, which are clear examples on how to use AI for reinforcing, strengthen the values of journalism. No? Also the need of technical training for journalists, so we can make decisions about how to use those tools, and ethical and editorial training for the technical staff, so we can dialogue and work together better. And finally, we call that, I'm going to finish with this, quality goes through valuing the human factor. What does it mean? That's my last reflection. We are living moments in times in the human history in which that makes us ask ourselves what makes us human, really. And we think in journalism we should be able to bring this question to our ground and ask ourselves, how can the human factor help differentiate the journalistic product too? We, the humans, are able to think. We think in terms, why does the people need to know this? Machine can't think in these terms. Machine can't think in terms of what was an uncomfortable question that I should ask now. And of course, from the ethical point of view, artificial intelligence or the machine doesn't have any kind of moral criterion, so it can't contextualize at all the facts. That's our human strength. Today, perhaps more than ever, we must resort to the great ethical values of journalism and thus be able to put this technology at the service of our public service mission. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you too, Patricia, for these ethical considerations and explaining how you arrived at your recommendations. We now have time to discuss these topics, and we already have a first question by Franco Zotter in the chat, and Flor has already responded. Franco, would you like to add to your question? Not immediately.
Franco ist gerade rausgeflogen.
Oh, I see. Sorry. So we will come back to Franco a bit later. If you want to ask a question, raise your hand digitally or post it in the chat. Meanwhile, I was intending to ask Flor, because you showed these many use cases, and you said one of the main motivations for using artificial intelligence is to tackle impossible projects. So that seems to me, and I wonder whether this interpretation is correct, that artificial intelligence is something for big teams, for large newsrooms who have a lot of resources. And I was wondering, what does it have in store for smaller newsrooms?
No, not for large rooms. It can go. I know examples for small rooms, but they do the good collaborations, no, to try to get the data processing or the computing, coding or powerful. So when I'm talking about the impossible projects, are because you have massive amount of data to process. So 1 million files of medical reports or that kind of project that then to process 7 million images of satellite imagery of Argentina. You can do it during summer. Students working at your newsroom, they wouldn't be able to process that kind of imagery, no, to try to detect solar farms. So that's why I refer to impossible. But with the right collaborations, I think that very small newsrooms can definitely work with AI, but you need collaboration. And there are some grants that you can apply, like the Pulitzer Center has grants for AI accountability, like algorithm accountability, and they also have machine learning grants. And like for the project with the diversity and inclusion terms, vocabulary, we have used money from the Google Nights initiative to allow our team to work on a project for like more than almost a year. And so maybe you need definitely support or collaboration for the satellite imagery. We didn't have the knowledge, technical knowledge at La Nación, and we made a collaboration with a software company, and they didn't charge anything. They wanted to be published in La Nación, that is a major national newspaper, and then for revising the telegrams, the electoral telegrams, we made another collaboration with a software factory that charges La Nación for other projects, but for this, their technical staff work for free because they wanted to test this technical solution of image recognition, and they wanted to give time for a cause that could be election transparency. So if you have the correct project, you can get help maybe without money, no? So
okay, I see. Thank you very much for these tips. And I have a somewhat similar question to Christina. You mentioned in your future scenarios, you had this dimension of AI literacy. How do journalists, especially journalists who are too old to become students at your university, become AI literate?
This is a good question, because I think we need more programs that everyone can really attend in the newsrooms, and they have to set up their own. Of course, I think the best ones are those that are connected to real projects in the newsrooms. So maybe it would even be helpful to have an experimentation lab in newsrooms where you could just try out and test new tools, for example, just to get used to working with them. I would support.
So like Flor did with the datainment, the music analysis.
To really start small and to learn how to collaborate with AI-driven tools, because I had one comic strip in the presentation out of this nice study, how humans judge machines, and this really showed that we expect total accuracy from machines and also from artificial intelligence systems. And we have to learn that they, of course, also make mistakes, what questions we have to ask them, how to find out biases, for example. And these are all skills in these hybrid systems that we have to adapt. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I see Franco is back. Franco, Flor tried to answer your question in the chat, but maybe you would like to still follow up.
The question was for me?
I'm not sure.
I think he should for everyone.
Yeah.
Like, how probably do you think it is that journalism will become a repair store for impressive and powerful AI products with accuracy programs, like fact-checking, service provider for AI applications, and similar? And won't AI make many areas obsolete that journalism currently counts as its core task? Yes and yes, I think. I hope that with the deepfakes, people turn to media or fact-checking sites to get to know if it's true or not, something that is around the web or social media. And definitely there's some tasks that are becoming obsolete, like transcribing, interviews. That's obsolete. No, you can or maybe you can get the transcriptions of a conference. Like, for example, I use the automated transcription of Nick Diakopoulos' presentation on Perugia. So I had the video, but I also, when the video finishes, you can download the transcripts a couple of hours later, and I use that as text to analyze. So I haven't been like listening and typing what Nick Diakopoulos said, no, for providing you this science journalism example. I know if I have answer, I hope people come to media to find if it's true or not. And I hope that no president with nuclear powers press a button that can lead to the third war because he just saw a deepfake video and has been offended by maybe Biden's or another president declarations. And like, I know maybe we have to have alphabetization for our audience, like show them how easy it is to make this and to be careful, because sometimes you don't believe it, no? That is fake.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Then I would have a question for Patricia. Because one thing I noted is your first recommendation dealt with automated content. And Flor, I think, didn't talk about automated content at all. And Christina mentioned especially one bad example, the example of CNET, but still regulating, labeling automated content is a topic a lot of journalists are talking about. Do you think this will become a pressing issue, or was it just the first recommendation because you wanted to check it and come to more important things afterwards?
Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, when we did this report, it was not that topic at all. We know that automation is in operation in the media from a long time ago with those tools that automate content for SEO sometimes and like kind of very plain content about sports results, meteor, no? But now with ChatGPT and those generative tools has become the topic, and the recommendation is the same. If we attach to our values, if we need trust, our information ecosystem needs healthy information. And I think this is part of our mission. So if we need trust and we want to contribute to this healthy ecosystem, we should be transparent. But also I remind that the law in Europe will oblige to mark the video and video for sure, images for sure. Here in Catalonia, the national TV has a watermark in all the text-generated news, and anybody obliges them to do it. But it's a good exercise of transparency, and it's also good protection for eventual errors, because it's the way that you say, okay, that we didn't generate this, so it's a good protection too.
Mm-hmm. I see.
I would like to add a little thing about the question before, because I think it's important when you asked how do maybe older journalists or people that it's not now in university, how to train in AI. Here in Catalonia, myself actually developed a course for the Journalist Association, and it was full. It generated a lot of interest for the journalists that are currently working in media, and it has been a good experience that maybe in other countries would be also a good initiative. And so I'm in an international forum, so I would like to share this very good experience that we had here.
Okay, thank you. And maybe a question, I'm not sure who would like to answer. One thought I have is, okay, we label automatic generated texts and images, so for the reasons you have just mentioned, but I could imagine a future where if you write a standard article or have a general nondescript photo, everyone will believe it has been generated automatically. If you want to prove to the audience that it's original reporting, you will have to find ways to be better than the machines are. So having just an everyday news report based on 1 or 2 press releases and a phone call will not be enough to really satisfy the audience. So the bar is for good reporting is actually raised. Could that be a way things will be going? Or will it deteriorate? What do you think?
I'm going to leave it to answer to my colleagues, but I just want to say a very short sentence that you will find in the report that is answers very good. And this question is, if machines can do basic journalism, then anyone with a machine can do that journalism. No.
All right.
I was talking yesterday with my daughter. She's studying for law school, and she had to make an essay on AI and a contracts solution for lawyers, no? And so we were talking about how like basic due diligence of mergers and acquisitions and different clauses for contracts will be provided by AI. No, so which is the role for the lawyer, no?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the same happens with the journalist. Like there are several tasks that will be done better by AI, but of course that we will have to reinvent ourselves. But nobody will do journalism like the people that have the professional aim to be a journalist will do it, and intelligent people with civic aims too. So I think we don't know yet what are our new skills there will be, but like now, maybe good writing as generative AI is a learning, like language machine, could be some like normal, no? Like I'm not a good writer, so I will maybe one day, I don't write a lot for La Nación, I'm more a researcher, but like being a good writer is going to be like more easy for the reporters are not good writers, but then all the connections, your mental connections or your contacts, how you work with your sources and the trust they get for you, that is very difficult. That will happen with a machine, no? So we have to to think what are the strengths of this profession to be performed by a human, and try to get the best of that, no? And complement with AI on the other. I don't know if I was clear, but I'm telling the same to my daughter yesterday night.
Okay.
Like it's like we will have to see which we leave to the machines and which are what is our uniqueness as journalists or investigative journalists or other reporting beats to complement. I don't know if I were clear. I don't have the answer, but I think that we are still rolling like in a wave, and we are we haven't arrived to the beach yet.
Okay.
Maybe we
Thank
will
you.
never
Christina.
arrive at the beach. I would second what you said, and also think that maybe we won't have a watermark for fakes in the end, but a watermark for good journalism, because yeah, in the end, maybe everyone just don't trust content from the internet anymore in any case. And then I see a cross-reference to the user needs model, for example, because the new user needs that are obviously quite important for audiences and that are not yet that covered by newsrooms are really the connection towards or between readers and the audiences and the content, like help me, connect me to my to my neighborhood, for example, or to other people. So it's not about the update me needs or inform me. And thus, I would say that that both leads into the same direction. We have to use our empathy, and this is something that machines won't ever have, I would say, to really find out where those connections may be and how we can really tell the stories that people need. And this won't be achieved by machines in the end. And I think this whole update me, inform me, business might shift more and more towards machines. Yeah, could be.
Okay, thank you very much. Our time is basically up, but I would like to ask all three of our experts one final question, namely, what's the one thing that journalists really need to understand about artificial intelligence and are failing to do so far? Patricia, would you like to start? Oh, Flor is raising her hand. Flor, please.
I think that statistics is one keyword, like AI is statistics, like ChatGPT is like large language model, but it's statistical text processor or image, and so that's like the basic knowledge, and the other is collaboration, like to audit algorithms deployed by governments or corporations. You need collaborations to use these tools. You at least will have like ready to use software for like transcribing, or like you are always will need a collaboration with someone to do this kind of reporting, no? And I think that the bad news is like climate change. Like all journalists will have to know the basic of AI, because it's affecting all the bits of journalism. And so they will have to try to understand what is happening and what is happening with the labor force that is going to be replaced. we need public policies to try to adapt these people to other markets or other profession. For example, I have an example. In La Nación, we were in another building where we have a large library and we have a librarian. When we moved, we gave away all those books, and this girl was jobless because there was no more a library. And she came to the data team because her skills are super useful for a data team. To classify information in spreadsheets, or her thesaurus thinking, so I think that the same we have to do with people whose jobs are going to be replaced, and try to how you can now work in this data world, no, or a world and you don't need to be the most intelligent person to do that. There's lots of work that can be done now. People in Argentina are in when you are running with your car. I don't know how to say that now. When you pay a poll to go at all, that is all replaced by machines. But that people can be classifying data or identifying images of an AI solution. But someone has to take care of that. And as journalists, we should talk about this in editorials, in opinion, in different sectors. We will have to alphabetize ourselves.
Okay, thank you very much. A lot of things that journalism really needs to understand. What about you, Patricia? What's the one thing?
Totally. I think the most important thing to understand are the limits of AI. To identify the limits of AI. That's that's actually our research. Knowing the limits, we will be able to acquire this important critical point of view. We have to know what is AI and be able to monitor it, to monitor those uses, to inform the citizenship, the society rigorously, as I said at the beginning, because we have a responsibility also here for the society to create a critical society. So first of all, we have to understand it and acquire this critical point of view and acquire this ethical perspective of the limits of AI, and most of all, don't fall in this AI hype. That I would say.
Are we still on?
I think Alexander has frozen, so maybe if you'd like to go ahead, Christina.
Okay, I think I have to. Okay, one short aspect at the end. I would add that it's so important not to think of AI as one thing. So it's not the AI that does X, Y, and Z, but there are so many different AI systems that are trained in specific ways with specific metadata sets, with goals and procedures. And this is something that we all have to investigate and ask all those those tech giants, for example, and our scientific collaborators when we are developing and working with systems. So these are so many different tools that are really specific, and sometimes I'm really wondering why we are using language that seems to be just referring to one thing. So in German, it's often die KI hat das gemacht. So the AI does X, Y, and Z. So I think this is the first thing that we should try to change. And then we would be fostered and forced to use a more specific language. And maybe this would bring in some more questions that we try to solve, and everyone will be smarter in the end.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. As we seem to have lost sadly lost Alexander. I will say thank you very much indeed to all three of you and for your very interesting presentations and for a very thought-provoking discussion to follow. So we hope to stay in touch and look forward to further exchanges. Thank you everyone for participating.
Thank you very much.
you.
A pleasure.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.